So today I got a 2004 BMW 530i. I am going to be changing water pump, thermostat, and radiator. That's what I'm looking for. So I've already torn this thing a bit apart because I was looking for another leak. Anyways, originally started off as the thermostat and water pump only, but then I noticed the rad had a leak coming out of the side of it. So quickly, this is pretty much how it's going to look when it's, put back together. All you got to do is take off this guy here, which is just these bolts surrounding it. Well, like one here, one here, one here, and all the way around. Anyways, then this guy can lift up and just move that off to the side. And then you've got this guy here, which is your kind of top rad support. This and this work together as your rad support. This has a little spring here and here. Those springs sit inside here and inside here, and actually is what puts pressure onto your rad support there. So anyways, remove this hose here, and then this one here. This has a bolt here, and then one here, and then one right here on both sides. Those two, these two, one here, and then this one. This one does come off. And to get that side off there. But anyways, a little bit of a wiggle and this just slides right off. At this point, if you're changing the radiator, you're going to take off the fan shroud here. So that is just going to be this big plug, which plugs in right here, and this little plug, which plugs in right here. And then at this point, the fan, is loose. So we'll just unhook this rad hose, move it out of the way, and then we should be able to pull it right out. Okay, so I have removed the upper rad hose here, and I also disconnected this hose off the reservoir tank. A lot of coolant came spilling out of there even though I drained the rad, so be prepared, that'll be a mess. And other than that, there is a connector right down there on top of the lower rad hose. Okay, so I tried to pull out the fan shroud. Didn't quite come out because it slides in behind, you can see, that's hard to see. This hose right here goes down into that cooler of some kind. Anyways, the fan shroud is kind of pinched behind that black plastic box right there. So I'm going to have to remove the cooler as well as this plastic box and then this one line that runs right here in order to be able to get this shroud out, because this, I can show you, this clip right here comes up and runs right into the spout of the upper rad hose spout. So okay, so what I've done here is this whole plastic piece that goes all the way up to here, up to this spout here, all needs to come off. So I took off the cooler, which is held on by 3 bolts, one down here and then one here and one here. Now I just let the cooler kind of dangle here, and what I got to do now is there's one screw right up where my flashlight is. It goes right up into this corner, so you got to get a Torx in there, undo that one screw as far as I can see right now, and then this guy right here is a little tab to pull the locking clip. Right there, you can see there's a locking clip that goes onto the spout of the radiator. So you just got to pull this guy down to unlock it, and then take out that top screw, and then this whole piece should just come right off. I lied. There was no screw. I thought, from what I could see, I thought this was a screw right here, but it's not actually. It's just a hook. So all you have to do was pull down that locking tab, and then as it's sitting here, just once you have that locking tab unlocked, just pull it back until it comes off the spout of the rad, and then this hook, you just go up and just kind of over it, and it falls right out. So that's super handy. Okay, so I've got the fan out here. Now, I actually took it out from the bottom of the vehicle. What happened is when I was pulling it out the top, these clips here kept getting caught on the pulleys. So once I took off the lower rad hose, everything slid down actually quite easily. So I'd recommend if you can lift the car up high enough, then that's what I would do. Made it super, super easy. Just a little other thing to note. The coolant leak that I seen, it was coming out of here. I noticed a stream coming out of here. So what I did is I took the whole top of the rad support off so I could stick my flashlight in here. And this is where I seen right in here. You can see it's all wet. And if I show you the front side here, it's kind of hard to tell, but anyways, it's all wet. This looks like this seam here is split and it's starting to leak coolant down. Okay, so once you get the fan shroud out, the radiator literally just lifted straight out the top, just nothing to it. The only thing I'm gonna tell you guys to make sure you pay attention to is these hose fittings. Now, these are all those quick release ones. So number one, make sure you don't lose the retainer, that metal retainer. Pull it up. Sometimes they'll want to come flying up at you. Just try and, once you get it up a little ways, pinch it with your finger, grab onto it any way you can. Because if you lose one, that's going to cause you a major headache. You don't want to be going to BMW for a stupid little metal clip. Anyways, so I have the rad out. Now, I've already got the parts. I'm already doing the thermostat and the water pump. So this just makes my job 10 times easier because it's wide open. So my suggestion to you is if you haven't recently done your thermostat or water pump and you have your rad out, do it because this makes the job 10 times easier. I also forgot to mention these, if these are like your original rad hoses, these this plastic portion here is very brittle, so be very gentle. Don't reef on it side to side super hard. What I like to do is take some WD-40 penetrating oil, something slippery, spray it around here, and I'll show you here what I do with these clips. So I just get my little pick in here, pull it back just a little bit, and as it starts to come out, this one's a little bit hard because it's a big one, but there it goes. This one didn't want to go flying off on me. It's usually the small ones that do that, but you can see it once it gets to here. It kind of it locks itself open. So then you can just, it's gonna take some wiggling, but just be gentle with it. This took quite a bit of wiggling, a couple of shots of some penetrating oil, but got it to slide. Now, if anybody wonders how these things seal, there is an O-ring back in here somewhere. Oh, right here. There is an O-ring right here. So be sure to inspect that O-ring, make sure it hasn't torn or is cracked, because that's just going to be a coolant leak waiting to happen. Okay, so I've got, this is the lower rad hose. That is off. Upper rad hose, obviously already off. Upper rad hose is a bit of a mess if you don't know already. Upper rad hose connects from here, obviously, to the upper rad hose, which the radiator would be right here. Also goes to this guy here, and then that cooler assembly that was on the fan shroud that I took off, it kind of connects down there too. Anyways, to get this off, this little hook here, this little eyelet has to come off. So bolt here, I think 10 or 12 probably, maybe a 13. And then this guy right here, that will get this eyelet out of the way, which is access to this bolt for the thermostat housing. You've got then this one here, and two more on the bottom, right here and here. And that'll be it for the thermostat. I suggest taking the belt off right now, because if there's any coolant there, it's gonna go on the belt, and it's gonna make your belt squeak afterwards if you don't clean it off good enough. Okay, one little thing. I was too lazy to go under here and actually look at what socket fits in here to loosen off this tensioner pulley. But anyways, it is a Torx. It's actually a T60. I got away with a T55. I have a T60, but that would require me going back to my toolbox. But I had a T55 beside me. It's a little loose, but it's really not a tight tensioner. The T55 works for me if you got it beside you. If you got a T60, that's the one that actually fits. And then right here, just a 16 millimeter on that guy. Turn it clockwise, yeah, clockwise, and take it off. Note your belt routing in case you don't have a diagram anywhere. Okay, so another little funky BMW deal here. I took off, this was 11 millimeter bolt, and I took off this one bolt down here to get this eyelet off, and for some reason they made it just so that it can't be removed. Why, I couldn't tell you, but anyways, one of those things. So I guess just leave it dangle here. That's really all you can do. Okay, so got the water pump off here. Nothing to it. The 4 bolts falls right off. One of the things, I got lucky here, but I should have loosened off these pulley bolts before I took the belt off. Sometimes just that little bit of tension holding the pulley here is just all you need. Now I got these off just by hand, honestly. Like, I held it with my hand and my ratchet and they came loose. So they were not tight, like not that tight. So anyways, as a precaution, loosen these bolts before you take the belt off, otherwise, and I'm putting the belt back on. Okay, so to my surprise, this pulley here is plastic, so do not pry on it. And it was actually kind of seized on there, believe it or not. So yes, anyways, don't pry on it because you will break this plastic very easily. All I did was spray a bit of penetrating fluid. I used one of these, I don't know what they are, nylon hammers, not metal. I'll just keep tapping all the way around and then it'll just fall off. Don't be too hard on it because you will break it. And there we got the water pump now removed also. Okay, so we've got old water pump. Old water pump had a plastic impeller. I went with metal impeller on this guy. I just don't like anything plastic, especially inside the engine. These have been known to break apart, even sometimes come off the shaft and just stop spinning. They won't break, but sometimes the press fit will let go and then the shaft will spin, but this impeller won't spin at full speed, which slows your coolant flow and, you know, cause more problems. So went with the metal impeller on this one, and then new thermostat, just for comparison, you know, never trust what the box says. Okay, also torque on the water pump bolts, 10 Newton meters or 89 inch-pounds. On these ones, also 89 inch-pounds on the pulley bolts and 89 inch-pounds on all of the thermostat housing bolts except for the ones that go onto here and the lifting eye. Those ones are 22 Newton meters or 17 foot-pounds. But all others are just 89 inch-pounds. Now, before you put your thermostat back in, clean it up real well. I've gone over this with a sanding block to make sure it's all nice and square. These 2 little black marks here, I can't get them off, but you don't want to like sit there and sand in one area, because especially on this aluminum, it can create a low spot and then potentially leak. So I like to take a sanding block, make sure it's nice and flat, as long as you can't feel anything. Like I can't feel that at all, so I'm fine with it. Make sure it's nice and clean, make sure you wipe out the barrel in there and put it all back together. Okay, so I've got everything torqued up, right? I've got the water pump torqued, put the pulley on, put the belt on, and then torque the pulley. That just made life a lot easier. Torque this guy, thermostat housing, and if anybody forgot how their belt went back on, this is a 3-liter, by the way. I don't know if I ever said that. So anyways, crankshaft pulley around the tensioner, back this way, around the water pump, down there, around that idler, and then around the power steering pump, and back around the bottom of the crank pulley. That side there, obviously straightforward. Now we're just going to go ahead and set the rad back in there. If your rad was like mine, this place, that tray that it sits in, was full of garbage and dirt and rocks, so I washed that out real nice, because you know, the last thing you want is to poke a hole in the bottom of your rad with a rock. Putting this back together, got the rad in here, literally just slides right in. As long as you keep it in its little holders here, it'll fit right into its spot. What do I want to say? I think putting this back together, I'm going to put the fan in first, obviously. And then once you get that fan in there, the rest of the stuff's going to just kind of slide back together, I think, quite quickly. Fan in, you just got to do it from the bottom. It's so much easier. It's just super easy to get the bottom tabs lined up, and then the little side tabs that hold it onto the rad there. From the bottom, you can just, it's super simple. Slide it right up and it goes right into its little locks. And then just make sure that this guy is holding on over the edge of the rad lip here. And that's basically it. At this point, reconnect your rad hoses. You know, here, upper, lower, all your other funky connections down here. And let's put that cooler back on. Okay, so we've got our upper rad hose back on, got our lower rad hose back on. Don't forget to connect your one connector here, 2 here, and then 3 on the lower rad hose. And if you haven't already, reconnect your thermostat connector. Aside from that, as long as your drain valve is closed, you can start refilling. And then as the car runs and bleeds, you can, you know, put together the rest of the rad support stuff. Okay, so I'm filling the cooling system right now, and I'm using what's called an airlift. So essentially, what I'm doing here is I have this plug into the reservoir, and I'm sucked vacuum out of the system. So what you'll see here is my hoses have all collapsed here, which is totally normal. And then what you're doing is, this also is a leak checker. So this double checks the integrity of the system. So right now I have it right here. It's been there for about 30 seconds now, and we're not moving. So I'm happy with the system as far as leaks go. There's no leaks. So now, if you have this is one of those things that I'd highly recommend, and I never realized how handy it was until I decided to get it. So this essentially is supposed to eliminate air locks from your cooling system, because you're sucking all the air out, and then it's going to suck itself back in using vacuum. So it's really actually a simple system. So vacuum into here. I've got my hose into my new coolant here, which I've already pre-mixed, checked it for the temperature. I have it set to -35. And now I have this closed here, which is just my, which is what pulls the vacuum. And then once I open this, the vacuum is just going to pull all of this up here. So I'm happy it's been sitting here long enough, and we'll just open it up and let's go. So you just let this go until it just stops sucking. So it'll slowly go down.